as a new day is waking, and again as it's fading away. In the time in between, it is fleeting and faint. It just seems to have little to say. Like whispers that wash in the wind, it is lost in the noise of a world disarrayed. It laughs like a child for the lovers, cries the lonely to sleep in its arms. It flies on the furious wings of the scorn, and it tries to make sense for those harmed. Reason denies it, belief amplifies it, but nothing can keep it at bay. There's a sound that love makes when it triumphs, and there's the sound that love makes when it fails. And the sound that love makes is abundant and free, like adventure bound wind in your sails. There's a sound that love makes when someone falls in it, or when someone gives up and dives in. There's a sound that love makes when someone climbs out and tries to believe it again. There's a sound that love makes between lovers. There's a sound that love makes between friends. There's the sound that love makes when discovered. And there's the sound that love makes when it ends. La 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 la. This is your part. La 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 la. Oh, that's good. It is sight in the eyes of the blinded, might in the fight for the weak. An anthem of hope for the hopeless defeated, and a voice for a choice that can't speak. It's vespers and psalms, fettered dreams of the longing, set free to become what they seek. Its melody carries no memory, and its harmony knows no regret. But its rhythms can drive the meek into wild, and the mild into passion's duet. Symphonies soar for it, poets adore it, but no one has captured it yet. There's a sound that love makes when forsaken, and there's a sound that love makes when it flees, and the sound that love makes when it's taken for granted, like a stone thrown into the sea. There's a sound that love makes to preside over grieving, like the sweet singing comfort of rain, seeping in deep to redeem the receiver till they're ready for laughter again. There's a sound that love makes when it blunders, and the sound doesn't make any sense. And the sound that love makes roars like thunder, when the sound that love makes is incensed. It holds all hope for the future and releases regret from the past, and all that is worthy of memory is shared with any who asks. La speaks in the echoes of laughter, and it rings in the halls of the heart. Its mercies are tender and heal the surrendered, but bitter when broken apart. The source of forgiveness, a recourse for weakness, and His course it is peace at its core. The sound that love makes resounds unabated, with boots on the march against hate tolerated. You can hide, you can fly, but you cannot evade it. It will fill up the world till it's past saturated, and every last soul is sold through with the sound that love makes. La 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 la.
Before we were able to buy this building, we met in rented space in an executive conference center. I had an office there that doubled as a storage room, which is basically what we have now in this small building. But during those months, I had 2 young men in counseling for addiction issues. And although I did my master's thesis on addiction treatment, I have to say, I don't like doing it. It doesn't have a high enough success rate. I just don't like getting into a relationship where I find myself wanting them to succeed more than they want to succeed. I pour my heart and soul into their sobriety only to see them relapse and relapse, sometimes until they die. In those days when I had to move carts loaded with hymnals and a roll-away piano aside to make room for them to come and sit next to me, I feared that neither one of these young men would be on the survivors list. The first young man, I'll call Adam, that seems appropriate, was living with his grandmother at the time he was coming to see me because his parents had kicked him out because he kept stealing from them and because he kept embarrassing them by being arrested in the middle of the night. He began then stealing from his grandmother, and on the strength of her resources, he moved from alcohol to methamphetamine. Adam died one night about 5 years ago in Joplin, Missouri, when, while partying with other meth-addicted friends, the police were called because they were too loud. And as the police are wont to do, they broke in the door, surprised the revelers who were not immediately compliant. And the police, in their testosterone enthusiasm, repeatedly hit Adam with a taser until he died from a heart attack at the age of 21. So what he would have done or could have done with his life, the world will never know. The other young man, I'll call him Cain. It seems like a biblical theme is good. Cain had, in my opinion, showed less promise of recovery than Adam had. Cain's relapses were the stuff of legend, often reported in TV news segments and newspaper stories. Like Adam, he was surrounded by family who loved him, who encouraged him, and who refused meticulously to see him as being nothing but an addict, nothing but a failure. So no matter how much he tried to convince them that he was an addict and a failure, Cain survived, and more than survived, he thrived to become a successful person in many different dimensions of business and of life, contributing to society. He married, he became a father, a true friend to many, and for me, a real live piece of evidence that even though resurrection is not a promise, resurrection is a potential. So this is not a religious story. This is a real life story of resurrection. Now, David sings about the sounds that love makes, and not all of those sounds are sounds of passion or of lofty and poetic affection. Sometimes it's the sound of a heart breaking when a recovering addict has a slip, and then another slip, and usually a third one and a fourth one before finding balance and sobriety. I know the statistics about spouse abuse. I can tell you that on average in America, a woman will leave an violently abusive relationship 7 times before leaving them permanently to either freedom or to a coffin. About 11,000 gun deaths in the United States every year are domestic, and mostly women. So I know the numbers, but what makes the numbers hard for me is that oftentimes I also know the names. I've had to share a meal with a woman begging her not to go back to her abuser, and I'm a pastor, and somehow pastors live in a place where people lie to you. It's just part of the contract. So they will tell me what they think I want to hear. But there are ways to tell. Depressed people tend to rest on their spines. They're hunched over. They don't make eye contact. And so they will swear to me that they will never, ever, ever go back to the abuser while looking at their watch to see how much time before they need to be back with the abuser. Sometimes love just makes the sound of a deep sigh. For those on the outside, it always seems like the addict can just stop. Just stop. Stop drinking. Stop using the drug. To those of us that love someone in a domestic violence relationship, don't go back. Get your stuff and don't go back. For those of us who love someone who's still on the other side of resurrection, it's up for us to keep making the sounds that love makes. It doesn't mean enabling, and trust me, it does not mean believing the lies. You do not do an addict or a victim any favors by acting for a moment like you believe the lies. Don't believe the lies. But it does mean having faith in their potential, the potential to live again.
Thank you for watching our videos. We are entirely dependent on the donations of our listeners and members. We hope that you find this content to be important enough to help us to keep offering these videos to the public at no charge by becoming a regular contributor. Please click on the donate button on our website at www.spfccc.org. Thank you for your support of progressive religious programming.